There's a moment in everyone's life when they have to decide who they're going to be. For some, it comes gently, like choosing a college or a career path. For others, it arrives violently, in a crowded hallway surrounded by strangers who've already decided you're worthless. Elena never imagined her moment would come on a Friday afternoon, with a boy's hand inches from her face and an entire school holding its breath. But when that second arrived, something ancient and powerful awakened inside her, something she'd sworn to keep buried. What happened in those next few seconds would rewrite the rules of Riverside Academy forever. The morning Elena first walked through those heavy oak doors, she felt the familiar weight of being unwanted. September light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across polished floors that had seen generations of students come and go. None of them had been quite like her. She pulled her faded jacket tighter around her shoulders, feeling every stitch of its worn fabric, every thread that marked her as different from the designer-clad teenagers flowing past her like water around a stone. Her mother had promised this time would be different. They always promised that. After the third move in 2 years, after the divorce that shattered what little stability they had left, her mother's words felt hollow. Eleanor had stopped believing in fresh starts. She'd learned that schools were ecosystems with established hierarchies, and new arrivals were always assessed, categorized, and often discarded. She found her locker on the second floor, between a trophy case celebrating championships she'd never be part of and a bulletin board advertising club she'd never join. As she fumbled with the combination, she felt eyes on her. Always eyes. Judging the scuffed sneakers that had seen too many miles, the backpack with the broken zipper held together by a safety pin, the careful way she moved, like someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible. First period was English literature. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, gave Elena a sympathetic smile that somehow made things worse. She assigned her a seat in the middle of the room, which meant running a gauntlet of stares and whispers. Elena kept her gaze forward, her spine straight, and settled into the hard plastic chair like she'd been doing it all her life. Because she had been. The whispers started immediately. Did you see her clothes? Where do you think she came from? She looks so serious, like she's mad at the world. Elena let the words wash over her. She'd developed immunity to this particular poison years ago, or so she told herself. The truth was different. Each comment was another small cut, and she was bleeding internally in ways no one could see. Lunchtime revealed the true social architecture of Riverside Academy. The cafeteria was a kingdom with clearly defined territories. Athletes claimed the tables near the windows. The artistic kids gathered by the vending machines. Academic overachievers clustered near the exit, always ready to dash to the library. And then there were the untouchables, the kids who ruled through fear and charisma in equal measure. Derek commanded that territory. He was tall, athletic, with the kind of easy confidence that came from never being told no. His followers orbited him like planets around a sun, drawing warmth from his attention, terrified of his displeasure. They were loud, careless with their laughter, certain that the world existed for their entertainment. Elena found an empty table in the corner, as far from the social battlefield as possible. She unwrapped her simple lunch methodically, bread from the discount bakery, an apple that had seen better days, a carton of milk from the school's subsidized program. She wasn't ashamed of her poverty, but she knew others would use it as a weapon. She was right. Derek noticed her during his second sweep of the cafeteria, that casual surveillance he performed to ensure his kingdom remained orderly. His eyes landed on Elena, took in her isolation, her shabby clothes, her carefully neutral expression. To him, she was an opportunity, fresh meat, a chance to remind everyone why they should fear him. He sauntered over, his friends trailing behind like sharks, sensing blood in the water. The cafeteria's noise level dropped as students sensed entertainment brewing. Elena felt him approach, but didn't look up. She'd learned that eye contact could be interpreted as either challenge or fear, and both invited escalation. Derek's shadow fell across her table. His voice carried that particular tone, bullies perfect, loud enough for an audience but dressed up as casual conversation. Well, what do we have here? Did someone forget to tell the homeless shelter we're not a soup kitchen? His friends laughed on cue. Elena continued eating her bread, each bite measured, refusing to give them the reaction they craved. Derek leaned closer, his hands planted on her table, invading her space. I'm talking to you, Charity Case. You got a name, or should we just call you Dumpster Doll? Something flickered in Elena's eyes then, brief as lightning, but she swallowed it down. She'd been here before. Different school, different bully, same script. She knew if she stayed quiet long enough, they'd get bored and leave. Usually. But Derek wasn't used to being ignored. He fed on fear, on tears, on the trembling voices of people he'd broken. Elena's silence threw him off balance, and that made him angry. He grabbed her apple, tossed it to one of his friends like a toy. Oops, Butterfingers. The friend threw it to another, and suddenly her lunch was part of a game of keep-away. Students watched, some amused, some uncomfortable, none willing to intervene. That was the rule at Riverside Academy. Don't get involved. Don't be next. Elena stood slowly, gathered her things without a word, and walked away. She heard Derek's voice following her. Yeah, that's right. Run away. That's all you're good for. More laughter, more eyes tracking her exit. But Elena had survived worse. She could survive this. The next days formed a pattern of escalating cruelty. Her locker was vandalized, cruel words scrawled in permanent marker that the janitor scrubbed away with weary familiarity. Her textbooks were knocked from her arms in crowded hallways, spilling across the floor while students stepped over them without acknowledgement. Notes were slipped through the vents in her locker, artwork depicting stick figures labeled Elena the Freak in various degrading scenarios. Through it all, Elena maintained her careful composure. She arrived early, left late, navigated the building like she was mapping enemy territory, because that's what it was. A war zone where she was the designated target. But what Derek and his followers didn't know, what nobody at Riverside Academy could possibly guess, was that Eleanor had been training for war her whole life. Every evening, after the house grew quiet and her mother's exhausted snoring filtered through thin walls, Eleanor descended to their garage. The space smelled of motor oil and dust, lit by a single bare bulb that cast harsh shadows. She'd cleared a small area, just enough room for her to move, to practice the forms she'd learned over years of dedicated training. Her first instructor had been a Korean War veteran who ran a tiny dojang above a laundromat. He'd taught her taekwondo when she was 7, recognizing something in her even then, a hunger to transform fear into power. Then came the Japanese master who taught judo, the art of using an opponent's strength against them. And finally, the karate sensei who emphasized discipline, control, the spiritual dimension of martial arts. Elena had absorbed it all like a sponge desperate for water, not because she loved fighting, but because she'd learned early that the world was cruel to the vulnerable. Each kick, each strike, each defensive technique was armor against a hostile universe. She'd never wanted to use these skills. They were insurance, a last resort. After the incident at her previous school, she'd sworn she'd never fight again. The guilt, the suspension, the way her mother had looked at her with disappointment and fear, it had nearly broken her. So at Riverside Academy, she endured. She absorbed the abuse like she'd been taught to absorb punches, redistributing the impact, never letting it reach her core. But bullies are like predators. They can sense when prey is getting comfortable, when defenses are lowering. They know exactly when to strike for maximum damage. The Friday afternoon was grey, heavy with clouds that threatened rain, but never delivered. Elena had just finished her math exam, her mind still cycling through equations as she gathered her things. The hallway was crowded with students eager to start their weekend, voices bouncing off lockers in a cacophony of freedom. She didn't see Derek until it was too late. He emerged from the crowd with his usual entourage, strategically blocking her path near the main stairwell. Students immediately sensed something happening, that electricity that precedes violence. Within seconds, a circle had formed, phones already out, ready to record whatever came next. Elena's stomach dropped. She recognized this setup. This wasn't casual bullying anymore. This was a performance, and she was the unwilling star. Derek wanted an audience for her humiliation. He needed witnesses to his dominance. Leaving so soon, Derek's smile was predatory. "We haven't had our weekly chat." He moved closer, forcing Elena to step back. Her shoulders hit the wall, trapped, exactly where he wanted her. "You know what your problem is. You think you're better than us, walking around all quiet and mysterious. But I see you. You're nothing, just trash pretending to be a person." Elena's hands tightened around her notebook. She could feel her heartbeat accelerating, adrenaline flooding her system, fight or flight response. But there was nowhere to fly. The circle of students pressed closer, hungry for drama, for something to break the monotony of their privileged lives. Derek's friends joined in, emboldened by the crowd. One of them, a boy named Jason, stepped up beside Derek. "Maybe she can't talk. Maybe she's actually mute. That would explain why she never fights back." He laughed, reaching out to flick Elena's shoulder. "Hello? Anyone home in there?" Elena's jaw tightened. She was running calculations, assessing distances, counting opponents. 4 of them. 1 of her. The crowd made escape impossible. If she ran, they'd chase her. If she stayed quiet, they'd escalate. She was cornered, and cornered animals had only one option. Derek sensed victory. He could taste it. This quiet girl who'd refused to break, who'd denied him the satisfaction of tears or pleas, she was finally trapped. He wanted to savor it, to make it last. He wanted everyone to remember the day he destroyed the new girl's spirit completely. He raised his hand, palm open, fingers spread. The intention was clear. A slap. Not a punch. That might seem too brutal. But a slap that carried its own humiliation. It said, "You're not worth my fist. You're barely worth my attention." The crowd leaned in, phones tilted for better angles. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," with a mixture of horror and excitement. Time crystallized. Elena watched Derek's hand rise, tracked its arc through the air, calculated the point of impact. She had maybe a second to decide. Let it happen and preserve her promise to never fight again, or break that promise and preserve herself. In that frozen moment, Elena saw her entire life. All the times she'd been pushed around, ignored, treated like she didn't matter. All the schools where she'd been the outsider, the poor kid, the one nobody wanted to know. All the nights she'd trained alone, building strength nobody acknowledged, developing skills she'd sworn never to use. And something inside her snapped, not in rage, but in clarity. She'd been wrong. Staying quiet didn't keep her safe. Being invisible didn't protect her. It just made her an easier target. If she was going to survive, if she was going to have any chance at a real life, she had to draw a line. Right here, right now. Derek's hand descended toward her face. Elena's hand shot up faster than thought, pure muscle memory taking over. Her fingers wrapped around his wrist with iron precision, stopping his palm inches from her cheek. The slapping sound everyone expected never came. Instead, there was silence, shocked and absolute. Derek's confident expression crumbled into confusion. He tried to pull his hand back, but Elena's grip was immovable. Her fingers dug into the pressure points on his wrist, just enough to hurt, just enough to make him realize he'd miscalculated badly. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Derek saw her, really saw her, and what he saw terrified him. Elena's voice was quiet, but it carried through the stunned silence. "You made a choice. Now live with it." She twisted his wrist with surgical precision, using a judo technique that redirected his own force against him. Derek stumbled forward, off balance, his face registering shock and pain. Elena released him with a controlled shove that sent him sprawling onto the hallway floor. The crowd erupted, gasps, shouts, the frantic clicking of phones capturing every second. Derek scrambled up, his face flushed with humiliation and fury. Nobody made him look weak. Nobody, especially not some nobody girl. He charged at her, forgetting technique, driven by pure ego. Elena sidestepped with minimal movement, a matador avoiding a bull. As Derek passed, she swept his leading leg with a low kick, precise and controlled. He crashed down again, harder this time, the impact echoing through the hallway. Students pressed back, giving them space, the circle widening. Jason and another friend, emboldened by loyalty or stupidity, rushed at Elena from both sides. This was what she'd trained for. Multiple opponents. No time to think, only react. Her body moved with fluid efficiency, years of practice compressed into seconds of action. She blocked Jason's wild punch with her left arm, simultaneously delivering a palm strike to his solar plexus with her right. Not hard enough to seriously injure, but enough to knock the wind from his lungs. As he doubled over, she pivoted toward the second attacker, catching his arm mid-swing and using his momentum to throw him over her hip. He hit the ground with a wheeze. The entire sequence took maybe 5 seconds. 3 boys on the ground, wheezing and groaning, Elena standing calm in the center, barely breathing hard, her stance loose and ready. The crowd had gone from excited to awed to frightened. This wasn't the entertainment they'd expected. This was something else entirely. Derek pulled himself up, cradling his wrist, his bravado completely shattered. He looked at Elena like she was a stranger, like she'd transformed into something he couldn't comprehend. All around them, students stared with wide eyes, their phones still recording, capturing the moment their social hierarchy collapsed. Elena's voice cut through the chaos, steady and clear. "I came here hoping for peace. I wanted to be invisible, to just get through this year without trouble, but you wouldn't allow that." She looked at Derek, then at the crowd. "I won't be anyone's punching bag. Not anymore, not ever again." Teachers finally pushed through the crowd, Mrs. Patterson and the vice principal, demanding to know what happened. But it was too late. The damage, or perhaps the healing, was already done. Elena straightened her jacket, picked up her fallen notebook, and walked through the parted crowd like she was walking through water. By that evening, the videos had gone viral within the school's social ecosystem. "New girl destroys Derek and his crew," read the captions. "Quiet girl has secret black belt. Don't mess with Elena." The footage spread from phone to phone, chat to chat, platform to platform. By midnight, it had leaked beyond Riverside Academy into the wider internet, picking up thousands of views. Eleanor sat in her small bedroom, aware of her sudden infamy, but feeling strangely empty. Her phone buzzed constantly with friend requests, messages from people who'd ignored her for weeks, now desperate to know her story. She turned it off. This wasn't what she wanted. Fame, attention, being known as that girl who fights. She just wanted to exist without fear. Her mother knocked softly, entering with that expression Elena had seen before, worry mixed with pride, mixed with fear. The school called. They want to meet Monday morning. She sat on Elena's bed. "Baby, what happened?" Elena told her. All of it. The weeks of abuse, the escalation, the moment of choice. Her mother listened without interruption, and when Elena finished, She pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I keep moving us around. I'm sorry you had to deal with that alone, but I'm proud of you for standing up, for being strong." "I broke my promise," Elena whispered. "I said I'd never fight again. You defended yourself. That's different." Her mother pulled back, meeting Elena's eyes. "And maybe that promise was unfair. I should never have asked you to make yourself small for other people's comfort." The weekend passed strangely. Elena stayed home, avoiding social media, trying to process what her Monday would look like. Would she be expelled? Would Derek press charges? Would the school paint her as the aggressor? She'd seen it happen before, victims punished for defending themselves because schools preferred peace to justice. Monday arrived with autumn rain, grey skies weeping over Riverside Academy. Elena dressed carefully, prepared for the worst. But when she walked through those heavy oak doors, something had changed. The hallways didn't go silent anymore. Instead, students nodded at her. Some smiled. A few even moved aside to give her space, respectful rather than dismissive. At her locker, she found notes. Not cruel ones this time, but messages of support. "Thank you for showing us we don't have to take it. You're my hero." That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Elena read them with a mix of emotions she couldn't name. The meeting with the principal was tense. Derek and his parents were there, his wrist in a brace that seemed more dramatic than necessary. They demanded punishment, consequences, insisted Eleanor was dangerous. But then Mrs. Patterson spoke up, along with several other teachers who'd witnessed the daily bullying. Students had come forward too, submitting evidence of Derek's campaign of harassment. The principal, a tired woman named Dr. Rivera, reviewed the phone footage with careful attention. "What I see," she said finally, "is a student defending herself against multiple attackers. What I also see is a pattern of bullying that my staff failed to address." She looked at Derek and his parents. "Your son created this situation. He's fortunate Elena showed restraint. Derek received a 2-week suspension and mandatory counseling. Jason and the others got similar treatment. Elena received no punishment, though Dr. Rivera suggested she might join the school's martial arts club, channel her skills into something constructive. Elena agreed, mostly to avoid further trouble. The days that followed were strange. Elena's isolation ended, but not in the way she expected. She didn't become popular exactly. Instead, she became something else. A symbol. Students who'd been bullied themselves started seeking her out, not for protection, but for inspiration. They wanted to know her story, how she'd become strong, how she'd found courage. One girl in particular, Maya, approached Elena at lunch a week after the incident. She was small, mousy, with eyes that had seen too much cruelty. "Can I sit here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena nodded, and Maya sat down like she was approaching a wild animal that might bolt. They ate in silence for a while before Maya spoke again. "I've been bullied since 6th grade. Different people, same thing. They call me Mouse, make fun of my stutter, throw things at me. I've thought about changing schools, about homeschooling, about just disappearing." She looked at Elena with desperate hope. "How did you do it? How did you become brave?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I wasn't brave," she said finally. "I was terrified. I'm still terrified, but I realize something. Fear doesn't go away because you avoid conflict. It just grows. Sometimes you have to face it, fight through it, show it that you're stronger than it believes." "But I'm not strong like you," Maya said, her eyes welling up. "I can't fight." "Strength isn't just physical," Elena replied. "It's getting up every day even when you don't want to. It's surviving when everything tells you to quit. You're already stronger than you know. You've survived this long, haven't you?" She reached across the table, squeezed Maya's hand briefly. "And if you want to learn to defend yourself, I could teach you some basics. Not to fight, but to feel less powerless. Maya's eyes widened. Really? You'd do that? Why not? Everyone should know they can protect themselves. That conversation started something Elena hadn't anticipated. Word spread that she was teaching basics to anyone who wanted to learn. It started with Maya, awkward sessions in Elena's garage after school, then 2 more students asked to join, then 5. Within a month, Elena had accidentally started a small self-defense class that met twice a week. She taught them what her instructors had taught her, that martial arts wasn't about violence, but about confidence, discipline, knowing your body's capabilities. She taught them simple techniques for breaking grabs, creating distance, making noise to attract help. Most importantly, she taught them that they didn't have to accept being victims. Derek, meanwhile, disappeared from the social landscape. His suspension had cost him his throne, and when he returned, nobody feared him anymore. He walked the halls like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, especially with Eleanor. She didn't gloat or seek revenge. She simply existed, taking up the space she deserved, no longer making herself small for anyone's comfort. Riverside Academy slowly changed. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, but there was a shift in the atmosphere. Bullies found their victims less willing to suffer in silence. Students who'd been invisible started speaking up in class. The culture of fear Derek had cultivated began to crumble, replaced by something tentatively resembling mutual respect. Elena never became the popular girl with dozens of friends and party invitations. That wasn't who she was, but she found her people, small group of students who valued authenticity over image, kindness over cruelty. Maya became a genuine friend, along with 2 others from the self-defense class, kids who understood what it meant to fight for your right to exist peacefully. Months passed. Winter came to Riverside Academy, covering the campus in snow that made everything look clean and new. Elena stood by her locker one December morning, watching students rush past toward warm classrooms. Maya approached with her usual shy smile, no longer stuttering when she spoke to Elena. "I stood up to them yesterday," Maya said quietly. "The girls who've been bullying me. They cornered me after gym, and I just told them I was done being their target. I didn't even have to use any of the moves you taught me. Just standing tall and speaking firmly was enough. They actually backed off." Elena smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the heating system. "I'm proud of you." That took real courage. "I learned from the best," Maya replied. "You showed all of us that we don't have to accept being treated badly, that we can fight back, not with violence, but with strength and dignity." As Maya headed to class, Elena reflected on how much had changed since that September morning when she'd first walked through these doors. She'd come here broken, hoping to disappear. Instead, she'd been forced to become visible, to stand and fight when every instinct told her to run. And in doing so, she'd discovered something crucial. The fight in the hallway wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning, the moment she stopped being a victim and started being herself, fully and unapologetically. She'd learned that strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about being terrified and acting anyway. It was about drawing boundaries and defending them. It was about teaching others they had that same power inside them. Derek had tried to break her, to prove she was worthless. Instead, he'd forced her to prove her worth to herself. The irony wasn't lost on her. Sometimes your enemies teach you more than your friends ever could. As she walked to her first class, Eleanor passed the trophy case where this journey began. Her reflection stared back, different now, same worn jacket, same careful movements, but something in her eyes had changed. She looked like someone who knew her own strength, who tested it and found it sufficient. The bell rang, students scattered to their destinations, and Elena joined the flow, no longer invisible, no longer a target, simply a girl who'd learned to fight for her place in the world. And in teaching others to do the same, she'd found her purpose, because strength, Real strength isn't about dominating others. It's about refusing to be dominated. It's about standing up when the world wants you to kneel. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's about showing others they can stand too.